And we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to 305 Takes. Me and Myles got a good show for you guys. Today, we're going to be previewing NFL Week 5. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a couple of games that we're going to be talking about, some headline games: Giants versus Dolphins, Ravens versus Steelers, Cowboys versus Niners, and more. We're going to talk a little bit about fantasy football, and we also got a new great segment that we're still introducing. We hope you guys love it. It's Miles's Best Bets, where Miles gives you guys a round of bets if you want to make it into a parlay. Cool. If not, who knows? Some of you guys could play single bets like it is, and we'll go from there. But we got an exciting show week 5 for you guys. And yeah, Miles, what are you excited for?
It's an exciting group of games that we got this week. A lot of teams that are looking to either bounce back from a loss last week or some teams that had an impressive win last week, and we might be looking at a potential letdown spot here.
I think Miles just foreshadowed our first game. So let's get to it. We're going to be starting off with the 9:30 game. I know everyone's going to be waking up early for this, including me and Miles. We got the Buffalo Bills versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And for a 9:30 game, this is quite the matchup because obviously people are talking about Trevor Lawrence versus Josh Allen. And then you have also Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs. The only kind of difference is the Bills are kind of more tailored to win now, whereas the Jags, credit to Miles, he convinced me now. I didn't see it. I was so high on them. Is that the Jaguars are good. They just don't know how to win yet. So, uh, what are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, so I want to see which Josh Allen we got because again, looking back on that performance against the Dolphins, he played just unbelievably. Four touchdowns, include four passing touchdowns, and including one on the ground. And he only had four incompletions in the game. So, more likely than not, when he was dropping back, it was more likely to be a touchdown than it was an incompletion, which is just insane. But he does go through those ebbs and flow. We saw him basically cough up that Week 1 game against the Jets when Aaron Rodgers went down. So, like I said, I think this might be a game where the Bills were really juiced up to play their interdivision rival in the Dolphins, and they want to put themselves in an advantageous position in the AFC East. So now going to London, facing the Jaguars, who have now been there for the second week, didn't have to travel after playing the Falcons in London last week. I could see this potentially being a letdown. Also emotionally as well. One of their leaders on defense, Tre'Davious White, went down with an injury against the Dolphins. So I think that there are some reasons for concern, especially if I was a Bills fan. But I do want to see what performance we get from Josh Allen because when he looks like how he did against the Dolphins, you can say he's arguably up there talent-wise with any quarterback that we have because of his ability to make plays with his arm and on the ground. He's ranked fifth right now in total touchdowns in the NFL. So if they can continue like this, then the Bills, can put to bed some of that pessimism that we had going into the season. Especially me and you had been talking about how really this is like their chance to win. Outside of this, we had the offseason drama with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen going into the season, and then you see the performance that they put together last week, and it's just a reminder that they're still one of the better duos that we have as far as quarterbacks and wide receivers go.
No, that's 100% the truth. And it's kind of like you said, I don't know which version of Josh Allen I'm going to see. Am I going to see the guy who's reckless with the football? He's trying to hurdle people 8 yards before the first down, where it's like there's times where I've even criticized Josh. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you don't need to be Superman on every single play. Like on third down, okay, I understand it. But on first and second down, the goal is just to get as close as you can to third down to get the nets for a set of downs. But I am excited for it. I do want to see how this goes. I want to see this week, mainly from the Jags, I want to see Calvin Ridley involved in this offense. I understand week 1 he was heavily involved,
And then
and
since then, it's been just a complete
opposite.
flip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christian Kirk is getting almost every single target from Trevor Lawrence. Whereas, like, I understand you paid Christian Kirk a lot of money and you got a lot of criticism, especially from us. It's like he's a good receiver, but is he that good? Like, is he $80 million good? So I understand they're trying to justify paying him that money, but also you don't bring in a guy like Calvin Ridley to not throw him the football. Nothing against Atlanta. It's just a lot of plays. AJ Terrell was not on him, so I expect like if AJ Terrell is not on him, you throw him that football. I don't care if he's double covered or triple covered. There's a very good chance Calvin Ridley's going to get open. And so I would like to see them involve him more. If not, see Travis Etienne. Does he have a breakout game? Because he's been underperforming for the first couple of weeks of the season. And Evan Ingram, I want to see him more involved in the game. Him and Trevor had a great connection going into the end of last year, and that brought a lot of people high hopes that they could, rekindle it. But we haven't seen that, so I do want to see what the Jags can do in this game. And if they can kind of, keep them in there, if it's a field goal game, like they're trading field goals back and forth, I feel like it could be good. But in order for Jaguars to win this game, I do think they need to come out hot and scorching, because if they don't, I do believe eventually the Bills will just take over this game, and kind of like how they did against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's going to be important because the Bills right now have scored at least 37 points in their last three games. Scored 38 against Washington, uh, 37 the week after that, 48 against the Dolphins. Uh, Only one time ever in NFL history has a team scored at least 37 points. Of course, it was the 49ers. So we'll see how if that trend continues this week in London, and then I also, with the Jags, the thing that you like wonder about is like, all right, they play in the AFC South, so it's pretty mediocre as far as division goes. You have the Texans that are on the rise, I would say, but every team in that division is 2-2. So when they actually face up against teams that we do have expectations for and we think can possibly win their division, I think it's an important step for them to continue and shake that process or that label of not being able to win yet or not knowing how to.
Yeah. I mean, this would be a huge win. If the Jaguars can get this, I feel like this could be the start of their run like they did last year to end the season of winning games and then winning that Saturday night game that clinched them a playoff spot. And that kind of also propelled them to beat the Chargers last year. So it's definitely something to watch with them, but you know, we'll see. But let's move on to our Nets game. Uh, this both of these teams are looking to bounce back after one of them had a very terrible, terrible performance. The other one just had a bad performance. We have the New York Giants coming to Miami to play the Miami Dolphins, and I don't know about you. I'm not really that excited for this game, mainly because I think the Dolphins are gonna win pretty easily. It's nothing against the New York Giants. It's just, bro, their offensive line is so bad, and Daniel Jones, credit to him. This guy played solid football last year. I'm not going to say good. I think he was solid. But man, this dude, after he got paid, he might have just pulled the biggest biggest robbery I've seen in the past like 5 years in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think this will be a get right game for the Dolphins. You saw the struggles that they had on defense last week with not really being able to generate any pressure, with Van Ginkel being the only one ended up with a sack in the game, and then obviously the Bills picking on Cater Kohu throughout that game. But then here come the Giants, who their passing attack has not been potent at all. We've really only seen one good half from them all season, and that was in the comeback against Arizona, who going into the season we all assumed was going to be the worst team we had in the NFL. And the Giants are honestly right up there with them. I mean, you could shut out opening night and just have an awful performance in that Sunday night game against the Cowboys. Then the following week, you get shut out in the first half and have to have a ferocious comeback to be able to do that, to be able to come back in that game. And then you see what happens against the Seahawks on Monday night last week. So I think this has to be a get right game for the Dolphins. I had mentioned on the podcast when we recorded right after the games happened on Sunday, like Bradley Chubb has been a disappointment, I would say. And, when you look at how that Giants offensive line performed on Monday against the Seahawks, like you have to be licking your chops, especially if you're Bradley Chubb. This is a game where you put up some stats, finally start making your presence felt out there. And even if they don't have Jalen Phillips, who is going to, every time he's out, that's going to be a huge loss for the Dolphins. But even a guy like Van Ginkel or Christian Wilkins, I think, should just be able to dominate uh, on the defensive side of the ball. And then when you look at their pass catching options, I mean, it's Darius Slayton, it's Wandale Robinson, who I do like, but he's kind of being pigeonholed into like being their wide
They
receiver
love
number one
Paris
right now.
Campbell.
Yeah, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins, like none of these guys strike, any fear into you really. And then, I think a lot of people, especially fantasy owners, were looking for Darren Waller to have that impact for them as a offseason acquisition, but he hasn't been able to have an impact. So I think this is a great matchup for the Dolphins. Hopefully, the offense gets back on track. I think it's going to be important to shut down Thibodeau as much as possible, and keep Tua upright, and especially more emphasis being put on that with Armstead looking like he's going to miss this matchup, and Kendall Lamb being at tackle. It's looking like, and then I want to see who they have at center. If they go back to Eichenberg, if they have Connor Williams, who we saw have some snapping issues earlier in the season with Tua, so those are the things I'm looking for. But especially like if we're talking about a fantasy impact, I would love to have any Dolphins player on my team this week. I think Mostert has the potential to have a really big week, and then I would look to maybe sell high on Mostert or even HN because you do have Jeff Wilson Jr. being eligible to return from IR after this week. So it might get a little bit crowded. So I could see this being a game where the Dolphins, jump out ahead and then lean on their running backs in the second half, especially with that South Florida heat, just trying to keep the defense on the field and, really wear them out.
Yeah. I do like the point that you brought out at center. Not only depending on who's snapping the ball, but also I want to know who's going to be matched up against Dexter Lawrence because he's still very good. He's still very good.
Yeah,
Obviously,
Dexter Lawrence and Darius Leonard is going to
so
be
it's
big inside.
yes, depending on who it is. The only thing once you said Eichenberg, it just reminded me of what we saw. You saw it on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, bro! When the burner account, once I just saw it, one of them is like, person. I hope it replaces Eichenberg, and he's like, no, he's fat.
yeah,
That
I
one just
saw
made me
that.
laugh. The one thing I do want to see from the Dolphins to get back on the serious note, I want to see Jalen Waddle get more involved because he hasn't really had like a good game, like not to the standards of what people expect him. So if I'm like any fantasy owner out there, or I would maybe try to like go buy low on Jalen Waddle because he hasn't had that very much production, and then he left early this year in the game around in the fourth quarter because of a concussion. But I do think that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill can get really good matchups against the secondary, depending on where Tua wants to go or how the plays are drawn up. I do think Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill can have a monster first half, and then the only thing would be the second half, depending on the score of the game. As the Dolphins want to run the ball in the second half, primarily to keep the Giants' defense on the field as long as possible. But I would like to see how Jalen Waddle kind of have his breakout game this year because I feel like this could at least help, and then it could take the pressure off of pass catchers outside of Tyreek Hill. Because last week, Braxton Berrios, he's a solid player, but he can't be your leading receiver or your number two receiver when you have guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Smythe, who I feel like is not bad at tight end. You still have HN, you have Mostert, and then like you said, if Jeff Wilson eventually comes back soon, you need to establish those guys and get them in the rhythm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking for the Dolphins to bounce back in a big way. It's only the second home game that they've had this year, and especially after being able to have such a strong start to the game last week in Buffalo, I expect the offense to continue, kind of firing at all cylinders like they have been really out following those second drives in Buffalo. Got a little bit shaky out there, but outside of that, I don't think there's really been anything you can nitpick with the Dolphins' offense. But defensively, I'm looking for pretty much a
They need
shutout
to
game.
show up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like this is the game where you get right. The next two games with the Giants and the Panthers headed up, like this is where you can make some of those defensive stats not look so bad because I believe they have given up the most total points in the NFL this season, which is crazy considering that they scored 70 points on another team. So it definitely needs to be, and especially when you get to a weaker part of the schedule with Daniel Jones and rookie first overall pick Bryce Young coming up. This is definitely a point where the Dolphins defense should be looking to look its chops and get back on track. And I'm sure Fangio as well wants to get
Yeah.
things on track because he's supposed to be this defensive mastermind, and that's been the weakest point of the team so far.
No, and also for anyone that doesn't know the stat, Daniel Jones was basically annihilated on Monday Night Football. 11 sacks for the Seahawks, and nothing to against the Seahawks. They just don't have any premier edge rushers on that team. They don't,
Yeah,
and they
not one
got
that you're circling on your schedule ahead of the game. It's like, all right, like they're going to have a solid defensive unit. They're going to try to get after the quarterback, but no one you're specifically circling like, oh, we cannot let this guy beat us.
yeah, and they got 11 sacks. So like Miles said, Bradley Chubb, the defensive line, Wilkins, everyone on that defense. I would be blitzing the Giants as much as possible. And if Saquon Barkley does play, you basically know the game plan. If you stop Saquon, you can stop this offense. So we'll see how that goes for them. But I think now we could get to a more interesting matchup this because we don't know who's going to be playing in it yet. We have the Ravens versus the Steelers. And obviously it's another divisional game for the Ravens. They've already had a good amount. Last week they were able to beat the Browns. Obviously the Browns did not have their starting quarterback playing, and then we also have the Steelers who just looked awful last week. So we don't know if Kenny Pickett's going to be playing in this game, but man, if I'm looking at this game right now, if I'm the Ravens, like I need to make sure I get this win because with the way how this division is going, and we talked about it the last pod, they need to like get as many wins as you possibly can and get this division done with as soon as possible because they have so many injuries on their team.
Yeah, it's a lot of injuries, and I mean, we also have to talk about the fact that Lamar has been pretty excellent for the Ravens so far this season, even considering all the injuries and everything that has taken place in Baltimore, and for them to be where they're at this point of the season. I know like this is a talented football team; they're always going to be talented and be able to put up big numbers, but I just didn't think it would. I thought it was going to be more like last season where they were going to be fighting for their playoff spot towards the end of this season. But I think it's just a credit to everything that they do in Baltimore, especially when you consider how the other teams in their division has looked. This matchup against the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers' offense has been terrible every week of the season so far. Like just terrible, like non-competitive. Remember that San Francisco
Just
game
not
where
good.
yeah, that San Francisco game. I mean, if the defense doesn't bail them out against Cleveland, they probably lose to one of those Cleveland games that one of the Cleveland teams where their offense wasn't even doing anything either. But I think, I mean, because you know how I feel about Mike Tomlin and his ability to always, at least be 500. This is one of those games where I feel like the Steelers might win, and we look back on it, we talk about it on Sunday, and we're like, how did this even happen? Like, how is
That
this
very
even a
much could
game that is,
happen.
and even, especially if it is Mitchell Trubisky starting at quarterback, I'm really going to be shaking my head on how the Steelers win if they do win this one. But it's going to be a bad football game, but it will be a classic throwback AFC North game because I think both teams are going to try to establish the run and then maybe try to get into some play action games and expand the field that way. But I would look for I want to see how the Ravens running back room shakes out as well because, Melvin Gordon had the best game out of everybody in their backfield. And, all of us fantasy owners are debating whether we add Gus Edwards or Justice Hill every week, it seems like, just because, they're supposed to be the ones getting the most carries, but you never know who's going to lead them in yards. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, especially because I just want to see Lamar. I think he's had a really good season, especially after getting paid this offseason. And then
He's played very well. Very well.
the Ravens defense has been incredible, even considering the injuries. I mean, they're probably their best defensive back. Marlon Humphrey hasn't even played this year. They've suffered a multitude of injuries in the secondary outside of Marlon Humphrey for guys that were already, moving up a spot to try to fill that void that Humphrey has left. So it's gonna be a good matchup. I just at some point, especially because his burner was found too, if the
Matt
Steelers'
Canada.
offensive coordinator Matt Canada doesn't put together at least some type of functioning offense, it's gonna be. He might be the first coach fired this season.
Oh well, yeah, one quit. Yeah, the Bears
Yeah,
coordinator quit.
resigned. Yeah,
Yeah, so I can't say that one's bad. The one thing I do want to mention how you said about the Ravens running back room. I think for fantasy owners out there, just like maybe a little, this is, I don't know how big it is to anyone, but last week Gus Edwards did get 15 carries, and then you had Justice Hill, who a note he's a little injured. He had 3 carries, and then obviously Melvin Gordon. So right now, I think if you really want to debate between Melvin Gordon and Gus Edwards, I feel like that's where you should really like focus on and not go after Justice Hill. Not that he's not good, but it's just in terms of right now, it looks like Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon are going to be getting the chunk load of the carries. And then, if anything, Melvin Gordon's going to be more effective in the passing game, which is something I never thought I would say because he's mainly been a rusher. And then Gus Edwards is probably the opposite. I thought the passing game, he would be great for this Ravens offense, but he's actually more of a threat in the running game. So I do see that. I do also want to see now that connection between Lamar and Zay Flowers. I want them to really establish it in this game because I feel like Zay Flowers can have a really very good game against the Steelers secondary because he does have that ability to separate. And then if not, does Mark Andrews have another big day like he did against Cleveland, who I think right now currently has a little better defense than Pittsburgh. I think they're just a tad better,
especially in the secondary too.
especially in the secondary, and they had a very good game. So can they take advantage of this Steelers defense? I think they can, just because this, like you said, I don't know who's starting at quarterback for Pittsburgh, so I feel like it's going to be some bad football. But man, I would like to see how this game shakes out. If the Steelers end up winning, that will be a shocker, because right now the the spread for this game, it's some people will say it's good. I personally don't like it. It's Baltimore -4.
4, okay, yeah. It opened at 3, and then I saw 3.5 yesterday. I think 4 probably means we're more likely not to see Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if it's 6, I would say for any Steelers fan, I feel like that is a good buy. If it's a 6, if it says Ravens 6, go ahead, get Steelers +6. I would take that any day. Or maybe if they want to go straight money line on this one, Steelers win. I feel like that's also not a bad bet, because at the end of the day, like you said, this is a divisional game, and they know each other very well.
Yeah.
So anything can shake out in these games. It could probably be one of the ugliest football games, and the Steelers win 6-3, for all we know.
And you know how important it is. Roquan Smith said he won't be a real, true official Raven until he beats the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
So
So
this game definitely means more than the average regular season game for both of these teams.
yep, it's a a rivalry that really got established in the mid 2000s for a lot of people. So we're looking forward to that. But now I think we can probably move on to the game of the week.
I'm so excited for this game.
Sunday Night Football. Everyone's looking forward to it. A rematch of the last 2 years in the playoffs. We have the Dallas Cowboys, but this time, like last year, they're going to San Francisco to play the San Francisco 49ers. And fun fact for anyone, if you haven't seen it on social media, Brock Purdy, the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, has a roommate because he can't afford rent in San Francisco. That just shows the housing market is not it's definitely not fun now, especially if you're Brock Purdy.
Even if you're an NFL quarterback,
Even
even
if
if
you're
you're
an
an
NFL,
NFL starter. But I know that's based more on basically where he got drafted in his
yeah, his
assigned
salary.
draft slot. But I cannot wait for this football game. I think it's going to be such a fun football game. And, you know, there's a couple of things to look at. I mean, Purdy has been pretty rock solid. I know he misses a couple of throws here and there. And the thing is, even though he's been really solid, it's like, do I really trust him, or does he just have amazing talent around him
Yeah,
and a great coach? Like, that's the thing.
that's true.
So, especially against this Cowboys defense, I want to see him make plays. Even like if he misses throws here and there, I just want to see how comfortable he looks against or what has been playing like an elite defense so far. I mean, every week that defense has been making plays, whether it's sacking the quarterback, pick six, turnovers. It doesn't matter. Even on special teams, we saw against that Giants game, whatever the case may be, that defensive unit has shown up this year. So I want to see him versus that Cowboys defense, and they're going to be without their number one corner with Diggs having suffered the ACL injury. So it should be advantageous for him unless Micah Parsons just becomes a menace. But he still does have Trent Williams out there who is a menace in his own right. And for the Cowboys, I think the thing that I'm going to have my eye on the most is how this offense performs, because there really hasn't been too much expectation or a lot of weight put on their shoulders. The only game they really needed to perform, they didn't, which was the Arizona Cardinals, which I think was just a throwaway game for the whole team because they just didn't perform. They performed below expectation and played kind of to the level of their competition. So outside of that, I mean, you see the Giants game, they really didn't have to do anything. They had 14 points by the time the offense even got the ball the first time. Last week against the Patriots, that game was pretty much put out of hand by the defense. So I want to see if this Cowboys offense can put up big numbers against a solid 49ers defense. And, how does it look? Does Dak rely more on the running game and getting Tony Pollard utilized, and they have Turpin, their returner, who they try to get in space and stuff like that, or is it back to old reliable CD Lamb, making plays on the outside? So I'm really excited for this game. I want to see this. I think both sides of the ball: Purdy versus the Cowboys defense, and then on the flip side, Dak versus that 49ers defense, and what can the offense do in this highly anticipated matchup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I want to echo everything you said. I I want to see mainly how the Cowboys offense plays because this is probably the only game I think out of their whole schedule outside of their divisional game against Philadelphia. They need to be efficient in the red zone. They need to be efficient. You can't be this inefficient in the red zone and expect to win because their offense just it hasn't been good. And no, like you said, they haven't really been asked to play good outside that one Arizona game. But rushing so far in terms of carries. Tony Pollard leads the team with 73, and he has 300 yards rushing, which isn't bad. I thought Deuce Vaughn would be way more involved in this offense. He's only had 17 carries for 33 yards, but then we saw Rico Dolwell. I hope I didn't butcher his name. He's actually been getting a good amount of workload in the backfield for them. So I do want to see, does Dallas lead into the running game, because they saw last year when if it comes to them passing the football, that defense for the 49ers, that front seven, they're going to get after Dak. They're going to get after him, and they're going to make him have him rush decision. And then if a pick happens, a turnover, everyone's going to be like, well, Dak is in midseason form from last year, where that will be the narrative. And so I do want to see, do they stick to the running game and try to run the ball as much time? Because I feel like if I'm Dallas, that should be the game plan, because the 49ers offense, not to say anything bad about Brock Purdy, but the offense has so many good players on almost every part. You have arguably the best running back in football, Christian McCaffrey. You have a top 5 tight end in George Kittle. Your wide receiver duo, obviously Debo hasn't been that much involved in the game, but you also have Ayuk, who's actually been emerging as probably their best natural receiver. He can run the route tree. He's very good in space. He knows how to get separation. Whereas Debo, he's a hybrid. He can obviously run the ball, catch the ball, make people miss, extend plays. So I do want to see how that Dallas Cowboys defense also performs well. I feel like if I'm the 49ers, obviously the 49ers are favored in this game. Right now, they're currently, the line is 4 for the 49ers, -4. And if I'm Dallas, if you lose this game, I wouldn't see it as bad as most people would, because obviously, like you said, they're down their number one corner in Diggs. They're not going to get him for the rest of the year, and no one's really expecting you to do anything because your offense has been so inefficient, and no one's really expecting anyone to stop the 49ers offense. So if I'm Dallas, if you lose the game by a field goal, I think that is a moral victory, but also like it will count as a loss, and then that will eventually get more separation between them and Philadelphia.
Yeah, and through 4 games, the Cowboys are 11th in total offense at 360 yards per game. But of their 124 points scored, 48 have come from their kicker. and 26 have come from a defensive player. So that leaves only 50 points coming from offensive plays. And Pollard's the only one on the team that has multiple touchdowns on the offensive side of the ball. So that's why I'm saying, like, this is why I think um, they need to put up on offense and really show us. And this is going to be a challenge because of how talented and well connected and played that the 49ers do play together. Only the Houston Texans and the New Orleans Saints have a worse percentage when it comes to scoring touchdowns in the red zone against versus Dallas, who have only scored 37% of the time when they've been in the red zone. Last year, they did lead the NFL at 71% of the time of scoring a touchdown. And you look at Dak, the last time that they played the 49ers, or the last two times of the playoffs losses, Dak's gone 67.7% passer rating, only averaged 230 passing yards per game, 2 total touchdown passes, 1 rushing, and 3 interceptions. So just as many touchdowns as interceptions. So, and
And the last
especially
play of the game being basically comical at that point.
that's what I was going to say, especially when you consider how the season ended for them last year with Zeke lining up at center and snapping the ball and getting just absolutely blown up, and that being his last play as a Cowboy. I mean, the script was perfect then. Whoever made that script, I hope they got a raise with this writer's strike being over. But
And then the
it's
year
just been,
before, remember when they were trying to snap the ball, but they didn't get to there in time?
and they just couldn't put together a drive. Remember that game stayed 23-17 forever, and we're like, okay, maybe they got it here, this drive. And it, like, just to continue with how weird it's been with this Cowboys offense. So Brandon Cooks, who I guess is their receiver 2 right now, like I don't know, because he only has 8 receptions for 66 yards in 3 games. And, CeeDee Lamb, who I'm assuming is going to get the most attention from this uh this 49ers defense, he was targeted 13 times in the playoff game and came away with a game high 10 catches and 117 yards. So I'm sure San Francisco, it does not want a repeat of that. And then, so where do you go to? Do you go Brandon Cooks? Dalton Schultz, who was on the team last year, is no longer there. He's replaced by Jake Ferguson,
Who's second on the team in targets.
and he had a career high 7 catches for 77 yards against the Patriots. So that's why I think, for me personally, the Cowboys offense is the X factor for me.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That Cowboys offense is the X factor, and I wouldn't be mad if they were to bet the Cowboys. I feel like for Dallas, honestly,
I feel like it's
really want
only
to win, this is the one hurdle they have to get over.
This is what I'm saying. I feel like this might be similar to how I'm thinking the Bills might be a letdown after that Dolphins performance. I'm thinking that this might be like the Super Bowl for the Cowboys, especially because the 49ers are undefeated. So if they lose this one, it's not going to make like a huge dramatic impact on their season. It will, potentially hurt because the Cowboys have, the tiebreaker when it comes to seeding at the end of the year. But for the Cowboys coming off the back-to-back years, getting eliminated by the 49ers in the playoffs, coming in this year, new offensive coordinator. McCarthy's back to calling plays for them. So I really think that this is their chance to make a statement and, try to put that Cowboy bad luck behind them.
Man, it's definitely going to be there because I do feel like Dallas has the team to beat Philadelphia. The only thing, I just don't know if they have the team to beat the 49ers. And we're going to see that this year because who knows what if they match up again in the playoffs, and do we expect the same thing? We don't know. But now I think we could get to a segment a lot of you have been waiting for. Myles, it's your time to shine. We have Myles' best bets.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this week, a little bit harder of a board to bet because you have some weird matchups like the Jets and the Broncos. And then starting off this Thursday night, you have Chicago and Washington. So, like, those are games that, like, I personally wouldn't want to bet on. Then when you look at some other teams that you might be intrigued on betting on, it's the Lions versus the Panthers, but then you have to lay 9 points with the Lions. Falcons Texans is a really weird one. Atlanta is currently favored by just 1.5 points. So for this week, we're gonna go with one of the games that we already talked about, until it moves, I'm going to go with the Ravens. I'll take the -4. Like you said, once it creeps up closer to a touchdown, I would probably personally stay away from it just because I don't expect too many points to be scored in this game, and I could see a late field goal going ahead and helping the Steelers cover. But with questions at quarterback about the health of Kenny Pickett, and we've all seen Mitchell Trubisky play throughout his career, whether it was in Chicago or his first initial stint back in Pittsburgh. I'm not afraid of him at all. The only thing that I would be concerned about is that it is Mike Tomlin and it is going to be TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith really trying to get after Lamar Jackson, who has been incredible this year. So the first one we're going with will take. I see it at 3.5. I do see some other places have 4. So even either way, I'd still take the Ravens. So that'll be our first pick for this week. And then after that, I do like a surprising over in this week. It has moved a little bit from when I originally saw it. It was at 41. Right now, I see it at 43 points, but I do like the over in the Broncos and the Jets game. A couple of reasons. One, we saw Zach Wilson have a really good performance, an encouraging performance if you're a New York Jets fan, in the loss to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. I think that they're going to look to continue off that, build off that performance by Zach Wilson, try to get some more confidence going in him. And then on the flip side, you have the Broncos who, have had just such a weird season so far. I mean, getting down to the Bears early in that game and then storming back to, basically salvage their season this early in the year, especially after what happened down here against the Dolphins. But I think this is going to be a game that we are going to have some fun with when we do our Sunday recap because this is still the Nathaniel Hackett Bowl with Sean Payton making those comments about Nathaniel Hackett and it being one of the worst coach football teams he's ever seen in the National Football League. So, regardless of who's at quarterback for the Jets, I do expect them to come out with an edge and try to, win it for their coach. We saw in Hard Knocks this year when they were playing that game where the quarterbacks were trying to knock down the pylon and they were talking, a little bit of smack to each other. Uh, Aaron Rodgers yelled out Sean Payton to Nathaniel Hackett during his throw to throw him off a little bit. So I think both teams are going to be very hyped up for this one and wanting to put on for their coach. So I do like an over in New York Jets versus the Denver Broncos. And considering that it is in Denver, with it being, a mile high, we do have the possibility for, kickers' field goal length being extended out a little bit. And then my last one for the week, I'm going to pick an upset. It's just a slight upset because this line has been a little bit weird. It opened up originally with the Titans as favorites and then went to the Colts. But I'm going to go Titans money line on this one. I think Anthony Richardson has been pretty exceptional, honestly, when we think about it, considering how raw we all thought he was going into the draft. He only had 11 college starts, and personally, I think he's been this year been way better than Bryce Young. And long term, I would take Richardson over Young probably 9 times out of 10. I told you guys after the draft I loved Stroud, and I wanted to see it with Richardson because I thought there were different possibilities in the way his career shook out, but I just wasn't a fan of Bryce Young. I can't with the smaller quarterbacks. It's not my cup of tea, but I do think this is a classic Mike Vrabel game where he gets his troops rallied up. This is their chance to get back above 500 for the first time this season. So give me the Titans on the money line on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. So we'll do Ravens -3.5 or -4, whichever one is available to you. We'll do over 42 points for the Jets and the Broncos, and then we'll take the Tennessee Titans on the money line.
Not bad. I'm surprised you didn't talk about the New England and Saints game because right now the line is New England -1.
Yeah, but both of those teams are so bad, bro. Like
They're
those are that's
yeah.
one of those games where I'm like, I don't want to waste my hard-earned money on. how bad this Saints offense has been and how just inconsistent Mac Jones can be.
Oh man, bro, Mac Jones.
Because those are one of the ones you're like, really, bro? Did I really have to bet on this one? Like, I could have just let it be a game that was played and I had nothing going on.
Because when you told me about I forgot what game was it. Was it the Packers like -1 against the
Yeah, against
Falcons?
the Falcons. Yeah.
I really loved that bet. I was
I
like,
love that. Yeah, that too. And I mean, you look how bad the Falcons' offense has been. I just didn't know that the Packers couldn't stop the run
yeah.
because that
Yep.
was Bijan's best game so far was
Mm-hmm.
against uh was against the Packers. And then you saw the following week, the Lions were able just to bully them on the offensive side of the ball, lean
Yeah.
in on them with David Montgomery.
I do like the bet how you talked about Tennessee money line because the Colts rushing defense it's not as good as what it used to be. So I'm expecting a big game from not
It's
only
just
Derrick
that
Henry and
Tennessee's
Tajay Spears.
offensive line is so freaking Swiss cheese that it's
Yeah,
like, oh my god, like, and
could
Tannehill's just to the point where it's like, oh,
could
brother, you
Spears
might be
get a
washed.
couple of good solid runs? I think so.
But yeah, and Spears or even Henry, and coming off the impressive win at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, and now going up against a divisional matchup, and especially because the Titans do win these games. Like even last week, you can say it like, or you're like, oh, the other team has it. Like the Titans aren't
Yeah,
that
and they
talented.
just come
They
in like
just
beat down.
and yeah, and they'll just bully you and lean on you, and the next thing you know, it's 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and Derrick Henry is getting his fifth carry in a row, and you're like, all right, our defense definitely doesn't want to tackle this guy right now.
Yeah, it's definitely like saying, all right, hey, we're good.
And I
We're
think the line moved because of the news that Jonathan Taylor potentially could return this week. He's been practicing, so I don't know how he's going to look in his first game back, especially considering he was actually injured as well, not just holding out. So I'm, I think taking a little opposite side of Vegas with that move in the line because of that create some good value.
yeah, no, it's definitely good. And I feel like we can end it with this last topic, little roundup for everyone. Some fantasy football. So, for those of you that don't know, uh, obviously we have our league for the podcast, and we will tell you guys the record right now. I will have to sign in, so we will have to tell them on that Sunday. But we have uh, we have Justin Jefferson going this week against not the most favorable matchup in Kansas City. Devontae Adams has been good for us so far. Tua, we're hoping Tua can bounce back. Tua is our
Yeah,
guy.
I like a big Tua game today. Not even gonna lie, I do like a
Yeah,
big Tua game this week.
we're expecting a big game from Tua, and so we have that. I do think we're 3-1, but then we also have our league, one winner, 11 losers, and right now, as the standings go, there's two teams undefeated at 4-0. It's not me or Miles, it's JP and Nick, but Miles is right behind them.
Shout out them boys.
Miles is right behind him. He's in third place at
Yeah, but
3.
barely. Shout out Christian McCaffrey because otherwise it would be two losses over there.
And then for anyone that doesn't know, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a 6-way tie for fourth with 6 teams at 2-2, which is I'm in that group. It's definitely tough.
That's gonna be the group that's gonna make or break our league. If if those guys continuously stay tied, that's gonna make it a fun season.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's just going to be back and forth, and depending on your points for, if you put
I'm
up a
gonna
good week,
cry.
that's going to be fun. I can't wait for that. See
And
how
then we
that
have
shakes out.
this is where it gets kind of bad. Ryan is 1-3, and then we have 2 teams at 0-4 with Pete and Dom. And so it's literally a mirror. It's a mirror of the thing. We have 2 teams 4-0, 2 teams 0-4, one team 3-1, and the other team 3-1, and then everyone else is 2-2.
Yeah,
So it's definitely there, and we I know a lot of people have been trying to make trades. Only like 3 trades went down. It
me
was
and you have been trying to make it straight all week.
yeah,
I
and
don't
for
know if
anyone
I
that
can do it though.
for anyone that doesn't know, I offered Miles Jake Ferguson, T Higgins, and Jonathan Palmer for David Montgomery and Sam Laporta. The only reason I did it because I just wanted a backup tight end for Andrews. That's my only reason I added Laporta in. And Myles talked to me. He was like, "Hey, I just have Kenneth Walker on a bye. I don't think I can do it," which is fair. I'm not even like questioning that. I'm like, all right, like Walker's on a bye. He'll be missing a spot in his lineup if he does that. But bro, it's just I've been trying to get a running back. I don't think people know how bad I've been trying.
So what do you think about this trade I made in my other league? I had Mark Andrews as my starting tight end.
Okay,
My two backups were Laporta and Kincaid. So I've
it's
had
not bad. You
Mark
could start
Andrews in.
Laporta.
Yeah, I've had Mark Andrews in all year. So I traded Andrews for James Cook and Adam Thielen.
I like the James Cook part, the Adam Thielen. Now that we know the reports that Carolina is trying to get a
As
one,
shopping, yeah.
and
That
it's
kind of
most
ruined my
likely going to be
season.
Hollywood Brown. That's
That
the
ruined
only
my
bad part
season a
about the
little bit.
trade.
Yeah.
Because if they were going to stick with how the offense looks now, I think that's a solid trade.
So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm gonna go Laporta starting tight end, and then I now have James Cook, and then that team I also have Jonathan Taylor. So hopefully I get the return of him this week because I just had to shake up my running back group on that team because my two running backs have been Miles Sanders and Brees Hall so far this season. Which Brees has been all right, all right. You know, he's gotten some yardage, hasn't really gotten into the end zone, but Sanders has been bad,
Yeah.
bad, bad, bad.
I kind of lucked out last year when I drafted him. I was just like, man, I really like Philly's rushing attack. I feel like Miles Sanders can have a good year, which it did work out. But then I was like, once I saw him go to Carolina, I was like, I am not drafting him. I can't.
Yeah, the only reasoning I had, I was like, all right, he's gonna get the bulk of the work. Like, even if he's not that good, like he'll get some goal line touches, like sneak a touchdown in here every once in a while. And that part has been true. It's just he hasn't been good even with a heavy workload. He just
Yeah,
hasn't gotten any type of yardage.
it's definitely tough. But is there anyone you've been trying to negotiate a trade with? Because, bro, I kid you not, this is before the season. And I talked
Well,
to
I
Alex.
want DK in
Oh,
all of my leagues. I want I'll eat the bye week. That's my thing. I'll eat the bye week this week with the Seahawks being on the bye week.
yeah.
I'll take him off your hands this week. Eat the bye week, and then I'll ride him for the rest of the season.
Okay, so you have that, bro. I
Yeah.
kid you not, because Miles is playing Alex this week. For anyone who doesn't know, last year the top two teams last year will play. Well, record wise last year. But bro, I kid you not, before the season, I tried to ask Alex for a running back. Guess what he told me is the best he can do.
Who?
He says, if you give me Mark Andrews, I'll give you Khalil Herbert. I
What?
immediately
What? What?
I
What?
kid you not,
Straight up?
I
What?
wanted to call the original Triple B, the Better Business Bureau, because I'm like, I'm sorry. This is I need a refund.
you need to send him the address to a comedy show and tell him to tell his jokes there.
No, and I told him I was like, bro, I had to make a call to Triple B because I was just I was
Yeah.
floored.
He tried you. He tried you. Mark Andrews for Khalil Herbert straight
And
up.
no, this he goes, this is before the season. We didn't know the Bears were gonna be this bad. And I was like, still, I wasn't even gonna take it
We
then.
had a feeling. We had a feeling that
I
that was
wasn't
how
gonna
they were
take
going
it
to be.
then because oh man, and it's just hard now to even make a trade. Last year it was kind of easy, but also everyone had a really good team. So it's like if you lose a guy, it's like, all right, I have faith in that this guy can make up for the loss because it's 12 teams, double flex. And right now, based on like the whole thing, the only team I am happy for, bro, I am happy for more.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been balling this year. Not going to lie.
And right now, I mean, outside of like one position, I feel like his team is solid. I mean, quarterback, obviously he has Jared Goff, and now he put Josh Dobbs in, but he has Pacheco and Achan at running back.
I
He's
like
got
that.
Jefferson, Olave as his two starting wide receivers. TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Devontae Smith and Wandell Robinson as the two flex. I feel like one of those can be fixed.
Yeah. They're a little boomer bust there.
Yeah. Then he has the Colts defense. I'm not too mad about that one. And
Solid.
then he has the Texans kicker, and like you said, the Texans have been on the rise. They've been playing really good football this year, so I'm not mad at that pick.
Yeah, definitely not. And they've been able to move the football too, even with
Yeah,
the rookie
so
quarterback.
boys team is definitely it's not as high powered as it was last year, but he's been getting wins, so
Yeah,
no one can
can't
say
be mad at it. Yeah,
can't be
so
mad.
it'll be fun to give the people an update after this Sunday night or the Sunday games go ahead and conclude and see where the matchups are going into the Monday night football game.
Yep, because I got Dom this week, and bro, Dom texted me. Because I asked him, I was like, "Hey man, like, are you willing to trade one of your running backs?" And then he's like, first and foremost, I
Not during
regret
game
trading
week.
Kelsey. I'm an
Oh,
idiot. So for those of you that don't know, a trade went down with Pete and Dom, and it's actually pretty nuts because ever since this trade happened, both teams are 0-2.
yep,
So it's I don't know what the difference was gonna be.
yep. That was funny.
I really don't know what the difference will be, but
Immediately lose your next two games after making the trade. That
yeah,
was part
and
of the stipulations.
the part of stipulations. And then we got Alex versus Myles, we got Moya versus Pete, Joe versus Ryan, Ed versus Nick, and then Moy versus JP.
Roy versus JP will be a fun one.
Yeah, that really two high scoring teams, and then I gotta give credit to JP. Get snagging Puka, that's big, but also the thing that of getting Puka with Cooper Cup potentially coming back this week, and most likely it's gonna be you want to see the production.
Yeah, we'll see how he if he can continue on the trend that he's on currently. I mean, he's been the best rookie receiver, like
Yeah,
hands down.
yeah, no, it's not even close. And there, I forgot who are some of the we had Quentin Johnson,
Yeah, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison,
Addison.
uh,
I know there's another
was Jonah Dotson was this year or last year?
last year,
Last year.
Josh Downs. A lot of people had high hopes for
Yeah,
Downs going with the Colts. Tank Dell for the
yeah, Tank
Texans.
Dell. Can't remember too many more.
Couple of Jalen Hyatt from
Yeah, Hyatt.
Hyatt made a lot of noise in training camp, so a lot of people were expecting big things from
Oh,
him.
the one that's been a letdown is Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Oh yeah, JSN.
That's been the letdown
I
so far.
also can't be too mad because the offense there's so many options there. You have
Yeah,
Tyler
yeah,
Lockett, you have
yeah.
DK, you
DK,
have Kenneth
Kenneth
Walker,
Walker, yeah.
and then you I forgot the backup running back. His name. He's been solid for
Oh,
them.
Charbonnet.
Yeah, Charbonnet. He's
Yeah,
been solid, so I can't be
yeah,
too mad about that.
yeah. There is a lot of mouths to feed over there. They honestly got so stacked after the Russell Wilson trade. They just got good
Noah
players
Fant.
everywhere. And look, yeah, they got Noah Fant. They got look at the two corners that they picked in the draft consecutive years with Woolen and now with Weatherspoon. Like they're stacked.
They have a really good team, so it's definitely something to look at. But guys, that will be it for us this week. We look forward to being back on Sunday. We're going to give you guys the best show we possibly can. And yeah, enjoy. You got football at 9 in the morning. You got football
Yep.
at 1,
All
4,
day.
and then the most
The late
anticipated
game is
game,
going to be so fire.
the most anticipated game probably of the season.
So
So
fire.
we hope you guys enjoy, and until next time.
Peace.